If we have longevity as our goal, we want long life and quality of life. Now we're going to get into, whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're talking about the three things that I said we were going to talk about, but now we're going to focus on chocolate as it represents food. Anybody interested in this topic, this is a wonderful book. It's one of the best ones we've seen. Dr. Lisa Mosconi, she is Associate Director of the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic at, where? What? NYU. It's in New York somewhere. I'm blanking on the name, but I like that. Dementia Prevention Clinic. They actually have a whole clinic. They believe that you can do a lot of stuff. She's also a trained dietitian, and she's trained in integrative health. So she's a neuroscientist and a dietitian. So she has these wonderful things. And she says she has two main points. One is that you can prevent dementia by being careful about the food that you eat. Let me rephrase that. That makes it sound like that's all you need to do. By eating well, you can put your brain in a better position to prevent dementia than otherwise. Your brain, or food rather, can be your brain's best friend or it can be your worst enemy. There are foods that you can eat that actually are poisonous to your brain, and to think of it as poison. Other foods are actually good for your brain and make your brain stronger. So very quickly, the obvious question then is, what are foods that protect your brain? And go back to Dan Buettner and the blue zones. This is what he found those people were eating. It's a plant-based diet, lots of vegetables, lots of fruit, not that much meat, particularly not red meat, fresh fish, cold water fish, which have a lot of omega-3s, which are the good kind of fats. You have to know the good fats from the bad fats. Legumes, whole wheat, whole grains, not processed greens. Very quickly, what are the foods that injure your brain? Oh, everybody's groaning. That's what we wanted. Why do we want these things?
Michael, this is all the good stuff. But it tastes good because it's processed to reach the bliss point. Anybody know what the bliss point is? Be careful, because when its shelf life is preserved so it'll be on the shelf for a long time, it's going to shorten your life at the same time. But you don't have to eliminate it. A slice of a little candy bar once in a while, but do like Sarah did. She ate 2 chocolate turtles a day, not a huge amount. So you can still have these things, but do it in a mindful way, and importantly, be in control of that. Michael?
Manufactured foods are not real foods. They're processed foods. And like Roger's saying, the manufacturers are putting excess sugar, excess fat, excess salt in there because we love that stuff, and it becomes addictive. So what we want to do instead is go back and do the other foods. As a general rule, you can start putting it over here. Thank you. As a general rule, you want to stick with real foods, not foods that have been manufactured in some factory. And one of the foods, obviously, that we want to talk about, the real food...
Time out. Everybody stop, freeze. We are doing this to distract your attention from what Michael's saying for the next 2 slides. It'll take us a few minutes. Now, you hold on to that chocolate and don't you do anything but look at it. Please. Is anybody in here a chocoholic? Okay, then we're going to place police next to each of you for speeding tickets. Here's what we're going to do.
Don't eat the chocolate.
We're going to pass these out. Go ahead and pass them out. But what we want to do is to have you understand that in a few minutes we're going to do taste aerobics that we debuted at the Smithsonian. And this is important that you not do anything but look. Don't even smell it. Try your best to inhibit that frontal lobe. Michael, thank you.
The one point that I was going to make is you want to stay with real foods, and the real food in chocolate is cacao, cocoa. And Roger will tell you, why cacao is so good for you. It's the sugars, the extra sugars and fats that are added to candy and chocolate that are the bad sides of it, but it's the cacao which is the beneficial food. Roger?
The next few minutes, I'm going to teach you the techniques that we found that when we invented this back in the early 2000s for our clinical trial, we didn't know that science would catch up and actually show that when you concentrate on the food that you're eating and eat that one bite very slowly, we can put an imaging machine and show that your brain is activating and paying attention long enough for you to actually find flavors, find textures that you never found before, and it could be the same favorite food you had. We don't, in this test or in this brain break, we don't try to find your favorite food, but what we do is we have Concordia's team create a one-of-a-kind elixir with Aztecian chocolate, and I can't remember what else is in that. But you'll be able to have this sip, and we've got a second taste aerobics that we're going to have you practice that. And then afterwards, there are 3 more created dishes in the lobby for you to have and taste it with the technique I'm going to teach you right now. And that technique, called taste aerobics, was when we found that all of these on the screen, all of these happen when you eat chocolate in a mindful way that does not mean Snickers and Hershey's. You can have those every so often, but try to have 1 bite or 2 bites and then have some more later in the afternoon. But look at all that happens here, especially mood. When your mood is lifted with just a little piece of chocolate, mood doesn't happen accidentally. It's because you saw a baby, or you saw a puppy dog, or you listened to music, or you smelled chocolate and then tasted it. Your brain has a, hear that? I named that a neurosquirt. And when Michael heard that, he said, we can't be naming important things like the explosion of neurotransmitters in your brain and chemicals that are called neurochemicals when you have that joy of something or that savoring of something. But that's what it is. It's a neurosquirt. And when you get that squirt by eating chocolate or by hugging a baby, it doesn't suck back into your brain when you say goodbye to the baby or you finish that candy bar or you say to that puppy, thank you for letting me touch their ears. Or anybody know what puppy breath is? Oh, if you've never had puppy breath into your nose, you have no idea what euphoria is. And euphoria, by the way, is the word that Michael and I found in the literature describing what happens to the human brain after it eats chocolate. Now, not everybody, and if you have an allergy, do not try this. But I'm going to take you through taste aerobics. Thanks to Darren and his team, we're going to talk about the science of good taste to try to improve your sense of smell for the rest of your life. But you can't outsource what we're going to teach you. You have to do the work of practicing because, as I told you earlier, when you're going to do it slowly, you want to look at it. So everybody, are you ready? I'm going to take you through the gustatory system and the olfactory. Those are the 2 names of our brain's system. Stick out your tongue to me, please. There it is. That's the tongue that has 5 senses. And none of them are important to taste compared to the sense of smell. Those 5 are, what are they? Sour, bitter, sweet. 2 more. Salty. There's 1 more. A few, I heard the word, umami, savory, all of you went. When we grew up, we had 4 of them. Suddenly in 2008, they discovered that they could prove there's a 5th one that's the taste of an amino acid in meat, and it's in MSG and soy sauce. It was discovered not in 2008, it was discovered in 1908. A Japanese scientist wrote a paper and was told, no, there are only 4, and we think there may be a 6th one coming that's in the fat that comes from meat. But beside the point, if you shut your nose and you taste that chocolate, all you'll taste is sweet. You'll have no other. If I put not dark chocolate, but white chocolate, or I put a caramel piece in your mouth, if you didn't know which one it was, shut your nose, it'll taste sweet. It's all you're going to get. But with dark chocolate, you get a little bit of bitter, a little bit of sweet. We're not going to waste time having you plug your nose, but that's one of the techniques, to plug your nose until your oven. We're going to have you smell it in a moment, then you put it in your oven. Your oven is, what's your temperature of your mouth? 98.6. This room is 72. Within moments, that chocolate will start melting. You're going to use your sense of touch to feel on your tongue the slow melting of that chocolate. I don't want you to wait for it all to melt, because what you're going to do is know that this is already pre-melted. But if you do this with a piece of chocolate, take the time to have it melt. But what we're going to do is skip that part and have you simply sip a little bit in a moment, and you're going, don't sip it yet. And what you're going to do is you're going to even shut your eyes and try to get the essence. Swish it around your mouth before you swallow it, and then tell me if that taste reminds you of anything. And raise your hand if you have a comment on what the taste was. So again, we're going to do all of these. Look at everybody, sniff it now. Sniff it. Now stop there. Another teaching point. You do not sniff by taking a sample, taking a whatever's in your hand or in a cup of soup or a cup of coffee. You don't do this because all the odorants went into your lungs. You have to stop them. Let me go back a moment here. Right here on the screen, that's your top of your mouth. It's the only place in the human body that your neurons actually touch the outside world. Everything else is translated from sound goes here and is translated. Eyesight goes in here. You got no neurons in your eyeballs. It sends it to your occipital lobe. Everything with touch. So we're now at a point where we're going to have you actually take a sip. Hold it in your mouth. Go ahead. Hold it in your mouth. I'm going to be quiet and let you savor it. Swish it around. All right. Michael, are you ready to keep going? Because what we're going to do is to have you go ahead and sip that. You're going to get a second treat, but it's not chocolate. And if you like this or love it, Darren's got some more downstairs after we finish. Michael, let me shut off, and I'm going to have...
All right, so this was your little chocolate fix. Everybody got their... You can go ahead and sip the whole thing now. Chocolate. Now we're going to move on to affection. And why is affection good for your brain? And we want to start out, go back again to chocolate. And chocolate seems to be associated with romance. And Valentine's Day. And we wonder why. Roger, does it have to do, you think, with just from Hershey Kisses?
No, it has to do with the chocolate. But how many have been to the Hershey's factory? Anybody? Did you see how they made the Kisses on the Kisses line? One of you, I've never been there, but we used to do this talk, and I explained that kisses were tied to romance because you kiss somebody, and they said, oh no, it's the sound the machine makes when it plugs those out. But we tie that to romance for lots of reasons. Chocolate. And, of course, this is the big holiday for it. But we're here as neuroscientists. So when I found this at Oxford, I'll tell you, when I found a study at Oxford, it's a small study and one that gets a surprising ending of something they didn't intend in the first place. But here's what happened. Very quickly, you have you two. I'll use the couple. What's your name again?
Claire.
Claire and Oliver. They could be in the study as students, and they would have EEG caps on. All of their brain waves, location and intensity of their brain's activity is being monitored and recorded. They are a couple, so when they kiss, we found out that in their brains, they had a place every time they kissed that really spiked. They also had people who were strangers kiss. Same place in each brain, it spiked less. So there's intensity and location. Their goal was to record location. Could they prove that both Claire and Oliver have the same place in their brain every time they kiss? And then once the study was underway and they had proved it, they still had some more testing to do because they don't tell the students what this is about. At the end, they said, we've already proved what we needed. We know where and how intense a kiss is. Let's feed them chocolate this week. They fed them chocolate. To their surprise, the same place in Claire's brain lit up, the same place in Oliver's brain, and importantly, the intensity was registered. So they said, well, we got a horse race. Let's figure out what wins. Is it chocolate that is more intense in that love spot, or is it kissing that's more? How many say that it was kissing? How many say chocolate? It is. It was chocolate. That's right. And that's a tiny study, but it does tell you that you can control your emotions by hugging someone, and it's in the same spot as a little piece of chocolate. Michael, are we moving this to you? Okay. I think I told you that euphoria that's the term that's used, and that's what we want. It isn't euphoria like that's the biggest thing you've ever done, but if you can keep your life a little bit better by having those hugs and finding out something that gave you joy then and continue to give you joy now, your brain changes with a lot of neurosquirts.
What's happening in this, when you get euphoria because your brain produces natural opioids, like opium, but it's a natural opioid, your anticipation of the chocolate when Roger was teasing you, that's actually dopamine, which is another neurotransmitter that creates oxytocin. Is frequently associated with love. It's called Roger was pointing out to me, it's called the cuddle chemical by some, the love chemical. It's produced when a woman gives birth to a child. Oxytocin seals the bonding. It creates a bonding between mother and child. There's even some oxytocin and vasopressin that is expressed in the male because it's useful for the male to actually stick around and help the mother raise the baby. So there's a chemical response to try to create this bonding. So it's all of these, food creates chemicals, and what's interesting and intriguing is that social relationships produce chemicals that produce behavior. So socialization produces all of these things, including oxytocin. And we are, like many mammals, a social species. There are some species, some primates even, that just they mate and then they go off their separate ways and they live by themselves. We are not that type of species. We're a species that must be with each other. We need each other. From the moment we are born, children cannot survive unless they have a mother, and they have actually an extended family. Alloparents, it's called, other than parents who can help the parent, because one mother frequently cannot do it by themselves. So we do all of these things together throughout our lives. And the point here, the major point, is that when we are together, we have evolved to feel good. And we are healthy. We feel good. Our mood is better. We actually are healthier when we are with other people and we feel supported. We feel like we are part of a tribe. The converse is true. When we feel isolated, when we feel like we are being excluded from the tribe, the body translates that as danger. Because it really is a survival, especially when, back in the days, hunter-gatherer days, if you were excluded from your tribe, it meant you were done for. So that's the way the body responds. So loneliness is a very important issue. Roger, you want to sort of pick up there?
I want to make sure that everyone understands that there's a difference, and the science is studying the difference between isolation or social isolation and loneliness. Loneliness is the perception that you are alone, that you don't belong, that you don't get joy in going to groups anymore. So you may have a friend who goes places, but they may be suffering from loneliness. And loneliness is nothing to be dealt with lightly. But we think that when a community like Concordia and other robust communities that know the science of loneliness and how dangerous it can be, they understand what you can see in the TED Talk that Michael and I put together that really hits on loneliness, is now being put into a category of 4 medical signals that are adverse. They're called adverse medical signals. Your body is screaming to you. First is thirst. Second is food. The third is pain. And the new one is loneliness. There's a cellular meltdown, a cascade, momentum, when you don't have water. You quit thinking. If you're going to need water every day, if you don't get it, that's the only thing your body will do to survive. Your brain simply has to have it. It tells the body, do something. I'm dying. The second signal doesn't take a day, but within a short period of period of days, if you don't have food, your body is shouting, I'm no longer hungry, I'm starving. You start breaking down your system, you'll die. The third one is pain, intense pain. If you have chronic pain, you've got to do something about it or you can't think straight. It'll compromise your entire cellular system, and now called an epidemic of loneliness in this new world of people who are no longer bonding like they used to, is perhaps the most insidious, because people who claim, I like to be alone, you have to be careful, because the new studies show there's a molecular meltdown of people. Their lives are shortened by 7.5 years if they're diagnosed to be alone. It's worse than being a heavy smoker. And it's worse than being morbidly obese, 7.5 years cut off your lifespan, and worse, more years are cut off on your health span. But the nice thing about it, the good news is, you can break that chronic loneliness with the new techniques of simply having people engage in life. And Michael and I will talk about that at length, but not today. We're going to get to our next area, because we only have you for a few minutes. But here's a way to think about this. The two ways are to have emotional and social isolation or engagement. So when you can go and get joy by being with a group that is having joy, that is doing things that they all are doing the same thing. You take the Oklahoma Thunder, when they are in the playoffs and the whole city, it's called the elevation theory. It means that when you make the playoffs and when you get to the second round and when you win the Western Championship, when you're in the finals, your brain is healthier. The whole community is healthier. So you have ways to engage people by getting them to where joy is happening and let them be part of it. Now what time is it? Time for brain break. Okay. If you want to stand up, you can, because for sake of time, we're only going to talk about this for a few minutes, and you listen and stand up or get some blood flow.